So what are you doing?
Well, Asher, what I'm doing is I'm prepping beds. The spring has been crazy with bed prep. So you'll see these tarps behind me, and there's tarps over here too. So what we do, behind you is cover crop. Chances are pretty good. That's cover crop. We got peas and oats and winter rye, and peas and oats and winter rye. But basically, what we do is if we have cover crop, we'll mow it down and then we'll throw the tarp down on it. If we don't have cover crop, we'll throw the tarp down on it. What the tarp does is it prevents light from getting to the soil. If there are any germinating weeds, they are killed by the tarp. So when we pull the tarp off, not only are the beds dry, but there's no weeds, or very few weeds anyway. And then this broad fork, you can see the tines. These tines go down 9 inches into the soil, and they provide not only deep aeration, but it prevents the soil column from being too thoroughly disturbed. But especially in these sandy soils that we have out here, we need deep aeration, because these soils, once they get wet, that sand compacts. It's kind of like a sand castle at the beach. It turns into a big mud pie, and then the roots can't fly through the soil too well. So what we've been doing over the past 4 years is building this soil. You can see the compost that we put down on these beds, and you can see all those beds out there have a top dressing excuse me, of about 1 inch of compost. And what that compost really does is it provides lots of organic matter. That particular compost is leaf compost. It's made from decomposed leaves, which of course have lots of mineral content in them, lots of organic matter, which the microbes like to eat. So the other thing that oxygen does in the soil, that release of oxygen gives the microbes a flush of energy, and they consume the organic matter fairly quickly. Unfortunately, tillage with the broad fork, we're just sticking it down there. We're not making soil soup of our soil with a rototiller. And what you see in a lot of fields as you drive by, especially out here on Napier, you see, of course, sandy soils like this, but there's no structure to the soil, because tillage, you can basically count on 1% of your organic matter being burned up by the microbes, by the soil microbes with tillage. So if you have 5% soil organic matter, if you till every year, it's only going to take 5 years before you have 0 organic matter. So what we're doing with the methods that we use when we farm is every year we're adding organic matter, whether it be in the form of compost, leaf compost, whether it be in the form of pelletized chicken manure, which we add quite often when we're flipping over a bed, whether it be in a custom amendment mix that we typically purchase every year based on our soil tests. The other advantage that we have as a small farm is every year we can tailor make an amendment mix, or have an amendment mix made to amend the mineral content that's lacking in our soil. This year, our organic matter is increasing, and we have a surplus of calcium, we have a surplus of magnesium, but there's also a deficit of both of those. Not so much the calcium, but the magnesium, which what that means is that that organic matter that we're adding to the soil is starting to hold that fertility. And that's a good thing, because not only is it holding fertility, but it's also building soil. It's building soil and it's holding water. And it's making the soil much more fertile than it has been in the past. Even though sometimes we're turning over these beds 2 and 3 times over the course of a season. So what that means is that this soil, as we work it and the way that we farm it, is continually getting better, not only in fertility, but also in yield potential. And yield potential is just what it sounds like. It's the potential for the soil to yield a lot of produce. And that's what we want, because these are last year's carrots that somehow didn't get harvested. Yield potential. Okay, so yield potential means we've got more potential to crank out more produce, which is awesome, which means as we go from year to year, it's just gonna get better and better. So those cover crops that Asher was showing behind you are actually the most cost-effective way for us to add organic matter in the soil. So you can see, you know, that those peas and that winter rye are almost knee-high. Not only is there organic matter on top of the soil that you can see in terms of green, why don't you show them? Not only is there green that you can see, but underneath the soil, into the soil column, is the roots. And those roots are also organic matter. And that organic matter, when we chop it at the top, it covers the soil and it adds, it top dresses with all of the nutrients that have been pulled up from deep in the soil column. So we chop that down with the mower and it leaves it right on the soil surface. And then those roots rot in the soil, and the root hairs, once they rot down and compost in place, what happens is it creates more pathways for water to infiltrate the soil column, which is awesome because it means we don't have to till it. So what we do a minimum tillage practice, you know, and everybody's got their own philosophy on, oh, well, we're no-till and we till and, you know, we do minimum tillage. But the idea is that tillage destroys the tilth of the soil. It destroys the microbial habitat. And once the organic matter is gone, the microbes, they die because there's nothing for them to eat. And really in a healthy ecosystem, you want all of that diversity and all those life forms to be thriving. So that's how we approach it. You know, everybody's gonna have a different way to approach it. We're doing what we do, and it's working. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna broad fork this bed, and then I'm going to throw down some chicken. I'm sure Asher will be happy to show you that. All right, this is pelletized chicken manure. There's microbial life in these guys. At some point, we'd like to get away from pelletized chicken manure, but it works right now.
What does it do?
The main thing that the chicken manure does is it gives the crop a nice shot of nitrogen, which it's kind of like traction in a car. When you put the pedal to the gas, to the floor, the car starts moving. That's what nitrogen does for a crop. It basically increases green leafy growth, and it gets the plant off to an awesome start once we transplant it or direct seed it into the gardens. So that's the main reason we use pelletized chicken manure. And you can see, if you get close to it, there's all kinds of feathers, and it's basically chicken poop. And yeah, it's super dusty, and you don't really want to breathe it because it makes you cough.